start off, could you tell us a bit more about your portfolios and how you got into politics to start off?
My portfolio, now that we are sat on the opposition benches, is that I shadow education, culture, heritage, sports, leisure and youth. So matters pertaining to those categories are the ones that I am expected to take a lead on. Of course, one also has to contribute collectively, together with the rest of the shadow cabinet members, to all GSD policies and aspirations.
Okay, well, can you tell us some GSD policies regarding education?
Yes, the GSD tends to be proud of its past records in education. There is never enough investment in education because the price of ignorance would be far higher than the price of education. Certainly we are supportive that a person should be assisted via scholarships and so on to obtain their full academic potential, and at the moment and for many years to come I think we will always follow the British education system, because it works fine for us to attend universities in Great Britain, and therefore to attain the entry requirements is better if one follows the system. When it came to matters like the national curriculum, we always look at what the United Kingdom has, and we do tend to cherry pick in that we take on board the best of what they have to offer, but do have to adapt slightly some things to local circumstances and our local educational system. But because all our teachers are qualified up to United Kingdom standards, therefore they do hold qualified teacher and registration numbers in the United Kingdom. That is, I think, a safe standard for us to maintain, and I think that is what we have in mind for the future.
Well, another question here. In your previous manifesto, in GSD's previous manifesto, you proposed a mixed-sex sixth form college. Is that still in your plans?
Yes, very much so. We had discussed that whilst we were in government, and we had a ministerial consensus on that. There's a lot to be said from educationalists, and I come from the education profession itself, that statistics tend to prove that at secondary school level, somehow or another better examination results are achieved by males and females when they are in single-sex schools. However, education is not just about obtaining certain A-level results that allow you to go to university. The bigger picture is preparation for adult life, and what we feel was missing is that we cannot have our youngsters from the ages of 12 to 18 separated into male and female categories, because then at the age of 18 plus you're going to hit university where co-education exists, and it can come as a big shock. So this sort of slow introduction with males and females educationally in a classroom could be achieved without the loss of good academic results by something like a sixth form college. Part of it already exists via the Gibraltar College of Further Education, so if that model works, it should be possible and get it to work as well within our two single-sex comprehensive schools at years 12 and 13.
Well, now, given that you're Shadow Minister, one of your roles as Shadow Minister is for culture, would the GSD, if they get elected in 2015, would we still have the Gibraltar Music Festival and the Gibraltar Jazz Festival? Would you, if you actually get elected in 2015?
Culture is very important in a community. In fact, it's part of what makes a community. Yeah? One looks at how it develops culturally, how it entertains itself, and so on. So therefore, in the big, wide understanding of cultural matters, yes, all these things are supported. What one has to do then is, when I hold the portfolio for culture, one has to sit down and compete with your fellow ministerial colleagues, if one wants to call it that. There's so much money in the pot to be spent. Yeah? Everyone will claim that their own ministry deserves to have a certain priority, and I believe that a fair share should go towards cultural matters. Now, when I say that, cultural matters pertaining to perhaps two broad areas. One is the development through proper facilities and education process, so that our young aspirants in performing arts, in fine arts and so on, can develop their full potential, and also to expose our local community to international cultural matters such as importing performing artists and importing fine arts and so on. So one has to balance that, and I believe it should be done very much in consultation with the existing associations and clubs and so on that exist precisely for cultural matters. When one has heard their opinions on how the money should be split up, then perhaps we might end up with a small modification of what the present government has set up in respect of the jazz festival and other types of festival. But I don't think we're going to throw them out of the window just because they've been introduced by another administration. We had introduced ourselves certain other aspects, like bringing over international artists. So let's learn and let's also keep on board the good things that may have been brought in by other parties whilst they were in administration. Everything is not bad. We're not like the other side who have criticised and say everything was wrong. We have to admit some things are not that bad.
Is housing in Gibraltar as big as the problems it used to be, or has it improved? What do you see on that?
I think all communities in the world will always have, to a certain extent, to admit that there is some sort of housing problem. Look, is it as bad as it used to be? Well, it all depends to what particular year in our history are you going to compare it to. We are far better off, I think, today than what we were when I was a teenager, housing-wise. Yeah? And life has moved on, and there's a very big amount of home ownership that exists now, something that was introduced just over 20 years ago. Certainly, when my own parents were young and getting married, home ownership was non-existent. I don't think there were any institutions locally that even gave out money for mortgages. So yes. Now, what one has to do is balance again the needs of the community. Communities around the world small communities tend to help each other out to make sure that people are adequately housed. So we all aspire, and we should all be united to ensure that people are adequately housed. There are then circumstances in life that make you wish to aspire to a better home with better facilities, with slightly larger rooms, and if I can have a separate room as a study and another room to watch TV and another room to do my homework and a playroom and a nursery for my children. To a certain extent, that has to be according to what you can afford, and how you wish to use your own money. There are, however, many critics of people who say that why should people who can afford it because they have enough net income, why should they live in subsidized council housing and then own a second or holiday home elsewhere, and expect the community and the taxpayer to subsidize them? Those are matters that one, as a political party, has to listen very carefully to what the local community wants. But as a starting point, that every family in Gibraltar should have a roof over their heads and should aspire to a decent home, that is a fundamental principle that this party will always support, and therefore we justify our investment in building homes for rental like we did in the Mid-Harbours estate to a quality that no one can envy if you live in a private estate, and yet it is rental stock because the majority of people there are people who deserved rental housing and could not from their own pockets afford to rent, could not afford to buy their own.